on Halloween night,
Mhm.
as people do. Um, just right off the bat, I guess, Jubilee, Ben Shapiro. Yeah,
Yeah,
did you have fun? You have a good time?
I had fun for sure, but it was also kind of like blackpilling to talk to Shapiro and see that because I've always thought he's one of the smarter people on the right and that he
Yeah.
operates at least 10% of the time in good faith. But after talking to him that day, I feel like he's just a complete fraud.
I kind of always felt that way about him, so nothing new
Mhm.
was introduced to me. But did you come across the video that just got released on Jubilee, the Destiny versus 25 Democrats or
I
25
started
Republicans?
watching it, but I'm only like 5 or 6 minutes in.
I watched a good portion of it. I gotta say,
Yeah.
look, up front, I'm not a Destiny fan, but I'm not just trying
Mhm.
to hate unnecessarily.
Right.
Ultimately, he was the Democrat, so I was rooting for him in that scenario.
Right.
But he didn't do as good as I thought. But
Yeah, I think
yeah,
he a lot of times has the correct argument, but his tact and his like way of communicating it sometimes is just like too aggressive, too abrasive. And he's like, there's been a lot of times where I watch him and I'm like, if you just kind of slowed down and were a little bit
hmm
more calm with your delivery, I feel like you'd get across better. But at the same time, I can't fault him too much because I think being surrounded by that many MAGA people, at a certain point you lose your patience. So
of course, yeah, definitely. I think one of the things Ben did well, and this isn't
mhm.
because I love Ben Shapiro, I don't. I think he does a good job at matching the energy of the person he's debating, right? So
That's true.
there
Yeah.
were some guys there in the Jubilee video that we were in where they were like much more fast paced, much more intense. Like you, I gotta
Mhm.
say, I gotta say, if I was so disappointed that they started in the second topic, DEI topic, instead of that
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
topic.
I was not
That was
expecting that.
unbelievable. Because honestly, I'm
Yeah.
gonna keep it real. This isn't hating to some of the people in the DEI topic. They just didn't
Mhm.
argue good. Okay, like respectfully, the guy that started with like, guys, I want to make an announcement. We are on stolen land. I'm like, brother, please, we know.
Yeah.
Um,
And then Shapiro
but
said like, "Oh, when
yeah,
are you planning on moving or whatever?" So it's like, yeah, didn't
exactly.
look good.
Gave him a one liner. Yeah, but
Hmm.
with you, he was definitely more fast paced, definitely more intense. With me,
Yeah.
I did purposely come in. I started with a joke, called him
Right.
short, but also
Yeah.
made fun of myself. So it's like kind of a
Right.
respectful roast. But then I
Right.
kind
Build
of
some
got
rapport.
directly in. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And the debate overall, even though we had very limited time, was felt more cordial, felt more chill,
Yeah.
and ultimately, it wasn't like any of us threw any knockout punches. It was like two boxers just throwing jabs and feeling each other
Right. Yeah.
out,
That's a good
and
analogy. Yeah.
that's probably better than me getting wrecked. So,
I think you
um,
would have held your own, but also I think
yeah.
you were working on like a shorter time limit as well, so that was unfortunate with the clock over there. So
Yeah, I think for the abortion topic, I did pretty all right. Mainly because I
yeah,
refused to get into a moral debate about abortion. Other guys were
you
doing
kept it
it.
sort of like
Yeah.
policy focused, and I think you mentioned like the judges that he appointed overturning it and him
hmm
falsely claiming that people wanted this. So I think you actually hit like two of the pretty main talking points that come out of the right, which is that like everyone wanted Roe v. Wade to be overturned. It's like no one wanted that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And just Mackenzie asked which Jubilee. It was Ben Shapiro versus 25 Democrats. Both me and Adam were in it. And I will say, Adam's part is in the bonus video. Should have been in the main video because that whole section, Ben Shapiro was getting wrecked. It was kind of unbelievable that that was his start. I couldn't believe it. Um, and
I was also shocked. Yeah.
yeah, you did good because I remember some of your arguments. You were bringing up like, well, you were bringing up the investigations, and you were bringing up
Hmm.
names and that,
Hmm.
and like, for me, when those like, what was it, Jack Smith made those documents. When Jack Smith,
Jack Smith.
the,
Yeah.
when those were released, I remember like watching stuff about it, and it's like damning, right? But it's just so much information that for me, I find it hard to remember like the names, the
Right.
co-conspirators, and so on and so forth. But I'm sure you did a ton of practice. And
Hmm.
that kind of leads me to sort of my interview portion of this conversation, sort of
Yeah.
understanding you as a person. So I've seen your content
Hmm.
over some time, right? I mentioned to you when we were talking over there
Oh
that
yeah.
one of the videos you made, I left a comment, and for some reason, it just kind of kept getting likes for like months upon months upon months. So
Yeah.
for like a very long time, your content was kind of always there. I was always
Hmm.
reminded of it. So
Yeah.
when I heard you argue with Ben, I was like, I recognize that voice, even if I didn't recognize your face.
Yeah.
Um, but I want to go earlier than your content.
Okay.
Obviously, you're political. People
Yeah.
always have reasons for why they believe in their political beliefs. What got you
Hmm.
into politics? How young were you? Because you don't seem old, right?
Yeah, I'm
How
22.
young were you? Yeah. Oh, so you're just 1 year younger than me. When did you
Hmm.
get into this stuff?
I would say when I started paying attention to it and like developing my own opinions was probably during the Republican primaries in 2015, 2016, like when Trump first announced,
Mm-hmm.
which I think for a lot of people that was like an inflection point when it comes to American politics.
Yeah.
Um, I came from kind of a unique background because my family's not political at all, really. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really have any like strong liberal or conservative leanings on me when I was growing up, so I was like pretty much a blank slate. And until high school, I didn't know anything about politics. Like I would hear on the news like Democrats, Republicans. I don't know what any of that stuff meant. I was like, I don't want to know what any of that means. Um, but then I went to Chicago on a trip with my family, and we were
Mm-hmm.
on one of those like little boat tours, and we went past Trump Tower, and they were like, "Wouldn't it be funny if this guy actually won?" And like everyone laughed because at that time Trump was like a joke. Like no one thought he was going to win the primary, let alone the general. And
Yeah.
then when he ended up winning or gaining notoriety in the primaries, I started paying a lot of attention. I was actually a conservative when I first got into politics. I was Ben Shapiro actually is one of the people that got me into politics initially,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I was a conservative for first 2 years. Then I became a lot more far left. Like I was probably communist, socialist for a couple years as well. And
Was
then
that
over the
like the
course of
2020 era?
yeah, I would say 2019
Yeah.
and first half of 2020. And then sort of towards 2021 and beyond, as I also went deeper into my economics major, I think I moved a little more to the center. So now I'd
Yeah.
consider myself to be pretty center left. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you still, while you see yourself as center left, do you see yourself as generally more progressive socially and economically than, let's say, the general, let's say, establishment Democratic Party?
I would say so. I'm very much someone that goes issue by issue. So like I
Yeah.
have some pretty heterodox takes. Like um, I don't necessarily want, super, super high corporate taxes, although I think Kamala raising it to 28% is good. Like they should definitely be higher than what they are now. But
Yeah.
I'm less of someone that cares about necessarily taxing the rich. I just want to tax enough so that we can pay for what we need to do. If that
Yeah.
means we tax the rich, then we tax the rich. But I'm not like sort of principally I don't really take a principally like Marxist analysis of things. I tend
Mm-hmm.
to be more um I guess like I come from academia. I went to university in Michigan, so I'm like super involved. I did social science research there as well.
Mm.
So I'm just not super ideological. I think I approach things from like a more empirical standpoint.
And it kind of reminds me of that quote. I forgot who said it. It's like a bit of a smug liberal quote, but it's kind of true.
Yeah.
Where they were, I think, conservatives complain, oh, liberal bias, and somebody's like, well, reality has a liberal bias. So in the case of
So
your situation, like you're just looking at things objectively,
right, and
makes you
it
end
brought me
up being
actually to
center
the
left.
left. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I also kind of got much more into politics in 2016, in that 2015 primaries. Um, I was like vaguely interested in it like as a child, but like the sort of basic stuff. Like I like the
Right.
blue team. You know what I'm saying? I
Right.
like that Obama guy. I think my first
Yeah.
political memory was seeing some like news thing about Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama during the Democratic primary, and
Yeah. That might be actually the
before
same for me. Yeah.
yeah. Before any understanding of like anything, I didn't know what the hell intersectionality was or identity politics. But my ass was just like, I think there's more women than black people, so I think black people deserve a shot. So that was my reasoning as a child.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then in 2015, that's when the Democratic primary was happening. That's when Bernie happened, Bernie
Hmm.
2016, and that's how I got in. And I hear especially with the TikTok politics, especially back in 2020, it was almost ridiculous the sort of
Yeah.
political changes like these like teenagers would have. They'd be like, yeah, I was a Nash ball. I was
Oh yeah.
racist. I hated every minority.
Yeah.
But then I became a communist. But now I'm
Yeah.
a libertarian. But now I'm an anarchist. Like for me, I was
Yeah.
always just
Just
like,
all over the place.
yeah. For me, I was like, I like what Bernie has to say. Um,
Hmm.
I would describe myself as a social democrat. I don't think I'm
Okay.
necessarily like a democratic socialist. I think
Hmm.
I kind of like the the way sort of someone like Sam Cedar or Kyle Kalinske describe their politics.
Yeah.
Kyle is a social democrat, and he's just been kind
Right.
of open about that.
Hmm.
Sam Cedar just says he's of the left, which I think is kind of smart. Sometimes you
Yeah,
don't need to
I
get
agree.
into the weeds of things.
Right.
Um, Over the years, though, you mentioned you were a fan of Ben Shapiro when you were conservative.
Hmm.
Um, Gradually, what made you not a fan of Ben? What other creators did you start watching that were more, I guess, to Ben's left?
Hmm.
Um, and like, I guess who are some people in the creator space? Because, when we
Yeah.
were at the Jubilee thing, we were surrounded by creators.
Yeah.
Who are people that are creators that you kind of like to listen to or respect?
So, I mean, initially, I think I was sort of a victim of like the pipeline on YouTube of like Milo Yiannopoulos, Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder. Like my feed was serving me up those videos. I was like a sophomore in high school, so I was like, these people are smart. And I was
Yeah.
watching that, and then because I was sort of starting as like a blank canvas, I was sort of just absorbing like, oh, that sounds like a good point. That sounds like a good point. And then like as I would watch people debunk them or like respond to them, I'd sort of sift through like, okay, which of these arguments are solid, which ones aren't, and sort of like almost like natural selection, like my opinions evolved as they were
Yeah.
exposed to like different scrutiny from different sides of the political spectrum. So like one of the first things I ever saw was like I think it was Destiny actually breaking down one
Hmm.
of Steven Crowder's Change My Mind videos. And I
Yeah.
was like, this guy's like actually like destroying Steven Crowder. You're like, Crowder looks like an idiot after this. And then
Hmm.
I think Sam Cedar also did like a few videos on Dave Rubin and Ben Shapiro back in the day. So I
Hmm.
would say the two main people that probably brought me out would be Destiny and Sam Cedar. And then I would say I started watching people more like Vosh, David Pakman, Hassan, um, pretty broad diet of media, left leaning
Yeah.
generally. Around the 2020 primaries, I was watching Kyle Kalinske like religiously during the Democratic primaries.
Yeah.
I was part of the Yang Gang initially, but then I became like a Bernie guy, voted for Bernie in the
That's pretty
primary.
good. That's pretty good progress. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And then at this point, I kind of try to watch everything. Like I'll watch, alternative media left and right. I'll watch mainstream stuff, Fox, CNN, because I feel like it's good to know what the different sort of echo chambers are saying to each other.
100%. And like that's kind of what I like about these TikTok debates. I used to do these back
Mm.
in like 2021, 2022, and then my main account I can't do it anymore. So then I hadn't
Oh
done it
yeah,
for a long time. But
yeah.
then with this account, I had tried before this stuff. Oh my god, I don't know if you heard that on your end, but I'm
I
using
did.
like TikTok Live Studio on the computer. And
Okay.
I put on sound effects for every follower I got, so I just
No, I didn't
got
hear
jump
anything either.
scared. I got jump scared by like sound effect from like Hearts of Iron 4. But yeah, I lost my train of thought there. Creators TikTok. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Was trying to get back into this TikTok debate space, but then like nobody was coming. I kind of learned
Hmm.
you just kind of have to be a bit more energetic at the start. You got to be like you
For
got to
sure.
sound a bit more like a partisan hack. You got to be like Donald Trump is ass. Kamala Harris is
Yeah.
significantly better, and she's gonna beat his ass, and then people will get mad at you, and they'll come on as a guest.
No, for sure.
But what I love about it, the debate space in general, debate's not for everybody, and that's okay. But for me, I like hearing the other side because it's just like sparring for boxing. I already made a
Hmm.
boxing analogy earlier, but I think boxing analogies are great. It's literally like
Yeah, and I
sparring. It
box,
keeps
so
you
I can
sharp.
vouch for that. It's very similar.
Really? You box?
Yeah.
You
Yeah, I've been
trying to get
boxing
into the
since
YouTube boxing
September
space?
2022. I mean,
Oh shit.
if someone's in my weight class, because I mean, I'd have to put on weight to fight most people. I actually was talking to, you said you recognized my voice at the Jubilee shoot. Parker also recognized me at the Middle Ground shoot, which was like a couple weeks before. And we went and got food afterwards. And I was like jokingly telling him that like, oh, if Dean doesn't want to fight Bryce Hall, like I'll fight him. But like I wouldn't. Bryce Hall weighs like probably 70, 80 pounds more than me. But like honestly, the only person in the political space I can think of in my weight class is like Nick Fuentes. And it would be nice to like just beat the crap out of him, but also like platforming him is probably not the best either. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's something I would definitely love to do. I think it'd be fun, especially in the political space, but it'd have to make sense.
I definitely I love the sport of boxing. I've been actually been a
Hmm.
fan. Like it's like I don't think I'm autistic, but if I was autistic, respectfully,
Yeah.
I would say two of my hyperfixations are boxing
Hmm.
and politics. And I
Same.
I remember back in like I remember back in like middle school listening to the debates about Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather with like Stephen A. Smith and like another the white dude that he was co-hosting with, and it was intense.
Was it Skip?
Skip,
No,
Skip,
yeah, Skip.
yeah, Skip. I
Okay.
remember. Skip was always on the Pacquiao side.
Hmm.
Uh, Stephen A. Smith was always on the Mayweather side. But I love
Hmm.
that shit. I love boxing to this day. And you know, a lot of boxing purists hate on the YouTube boxing scene. I
Yeah,
don't. I don't. I
yeah,
mean, it's
I agree
it's
with you.
entertainment. It's. I really enjoyed the Creator Clash. I went there both times in
Yeah.
person.
Oh, nice.
And I would personally, if I was in the YouTube boxing scene, I would want to
Yeah.
fight there. You know, actually,
Hmm.
Mason is followed by iDubbbz. You know, and Mason hit me
Oh,
up.
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Um, but I would fight. I would also fight on Misfits. The thing is, I know with Misfits, if I had the opportunity to fight, I went to like a Misfits event in Miami, and I was like trying to
mhm.
like network a little bit more. I will say, I gotta
Yeah.
say, just being honest, the Creator Clash
Hmm.
YouTubers were a lot more friendly and willing to talk to you than a lot of the
That
Misfits
makes
people.
sense. Yeah.
Um,
They seem more
but
corporate at Misfits.
yeah. And I feel like if I fought there, they would like put me in like some prelims shit, and that would be
Mm.
kind of. I mean, like there are prelims for the Creator Clash, but it's like every single fight got a lot more love there.
Right.
Um, so the thing is, first of all, to get into influencer boxing, you need to become an influencer. I need more clout. You know, the highest thing I
Hmm.
got is like 11K on my main TikTok, but with TikTok standards, that's not exactly famous. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
I'm focused on building up my YouTube. But this TikTok live thing, I'm having fun with it, and I think I can make YouTube
Yeah,
content out of it. So that's why I'm trying to
for
pick it
sure.
up more.
Hmm.
Um, but yes, boxing, politics. My train of thought. Oh, this is actually perfect.
Hmm.
We don't need to watch the video, but speaking of YouTube boxing, intersecting with the world of politics,
Yeah.
did you see Jake Paul's recent video
Yeah,
going
I'm
into
actually probably making
detail?
a video about it. I started this morning, yeah.
I gotta say, listening to it, I mean, it's so bizarre. It's,
Yeah.
you know, liberals and lefties aren't always. We're not. It's like we're not. We're. I'm not trying to say this to dehumanize, but you know, there's a lot of like normal people on the
Hmm.
left, and it's not like everybody's taking the talking points and like preparing for a perfect debate at all
Right.
times. But when you talk to a right winger, you can talk to like the most normie conservative on the planet, but they will just go hard on the Fox News talking points, including Jake
Yeah.
Paul, who I don't think is like a super intelligent guy, but I mean
Yeah.
it's indistinguishable what he was saying from a regular pundit. But also,
Mhm.
it's indistinguishable from the people in these TikTok debate spaces. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but what do you think of
Yeah, and also
Jake's
just
endorsement?
such a surface level understanding the way he was comparing like average inflation rates over different presidential terms as if presidents even
Yeah.
have anything to do with inflation. I bet he
Yeah.
doesn't even know what the Federal Reserve is or how it works.
I mean,
Um,
I barely understand the Fed. I'm super political. I'm super political, but then we're like, they're changing the
to be
interest
fair, even
rates.
the Fed doesn't understand the Fed half the time. So like I studied macroeconomics for multiple years, and a lot of stuff they do doesn't make much sense. But with regards to like Jake Paul, I mean, I think why the reason you see people like Jake Paul and even like Bryce Hall and a lot of these sort of like influencer young male types going over to the MAGA side is because like it's not even political for them. It's kind of like the culture war stuff, and there's
It's the
very much
vibes.
yeah, and there's very much two distinct vibes in the country right now. Like there are two massive echo chambers. Like
Yeah.
if you live in MAGA world, it's a whole different world. They have their own media, their own entertainment, their own comedians. So like if you exist in that bubble long enough, I think like it's so easy to get sucked into it. And people even like Aiden Ross, like this entire sort of YouTube sphere of like Gen Z men, I think
Yeah.
has unfortunately been sucked into that vortex.
Yeah, no, it's super concerning, and you know, it's interesting with the. You look at sports, the world of sports. You look at the world of and like the YouTube boxing scene, for instance. I mean, it's just like way more accepted to be a right winger. You know, if
Mhm.
you have you have like iDubbbz, who, as far as I understand, like oh, listen, iDubbbz, I know he got like a really big right wing audience for being really edgy in the 2000s or in the
Yeah,
2010s.
yeah,
But brother cannot get a break. I'm gonna keep it real. Like
yeah.
when I met with him in person, because I stayed in the
Hmm.
same hotel as the Creator Clash in the first year, so
Oh,
I met
nice.
with a ton of those YouTubers. He was
Hmm.
respectful. He was accommodating, and a lot of them were. And, you
Hmm.
know, it's kind of a shame to see decent people get constant harassment. Like him and his wife are like, they're just normal. You know what I mean? As normal as
Yeah.
a YouTuber can get.
Right.
But with Jake, what was the deal with Dean and Bryce Hall? I just see like Dean and Bryce Hall like beefing on Twitter. How'd that even start?
So I think Bryce Hall started out by calling out Harry Sisson. He just like randomly got really mad at him and started making videos about him. And then I think he challenged him to box, and then I don't think Harry responded, and I think Dean stepped in. I might be misremembering stuff because I remember bits and pieces, but basically Dean said like, "I'll box you if you debate me afterwards," and they came to an agreement on that. And Parker said that Dean's strategy was kind of like he knows he's not going to win this far, but the debate afterwards is going to kind of make up for that. And
Yeah.
then from my understanding, I think around the time that happened was the whole Dean controversy happened with like some of his previous messages or whatever. So,
I'm very
um,
not caught up in that. I was made aware of some other controversies, but like
mhm.
I don't know if like the source was the best source. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
no, I've met Dean and Parker. I've talked to them. They're super, super nice guys, and like they're super good at what they do. But
Yeah,
I
they're
think
great.
that that sort of controversy happening made that plan fall through. Um, so yeah, it's just not happening anymore, I guess.
Quickly looking at the chat, so I just wanted to
Hmm.
respond to them. Somebody asked, "Are you going back on Jubilee?" Somebody asked, "Do you think Ross slash Tate types of characters on YouTube actually have a make a difference in the election?" Um, and Somebody says, "Bro is playing Hoi 4" because the following sound popped up again.
Okay.
But I guess to answer those two questions, and then you can give an answer to them too. With
Hmm.
Jubilee, I would love to come back, but probably not for Surrounded. Okay, that's that. Yeah,
Uh,
probably not for Surrounded. Um, but if I see a middle ground in the casting calls, I'll apply.
mhm.
And do I think that the Raw slash Tate type characters have an impact? I mean, not really so much Andrew Tate because I mean his children, his audience is children, and they don't vote.
Hmm.
So with Aiden
Yeah.
Ross, I mean, I guess it's. I mean, if I was running a campaign, I guess I would take any opportunity to get in front of hundreds of thousands of people on like
Right.
it's a big live stream. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing with Tate. I mean, his audience is young; they're not the voters. You
Hmm.
know, it makes more sense to go on, say, Joe Rogan than
Right.
Aiden Ross, but I guess it doesn't hurt to go on as much thing as is possible. We're gonna
Hmm.
get into election predictions soon, but I'm curious if you want to answer those questions. Are you gonna be
Yeah, I'm
back
trying to
on
find.
Jubilee?
Okay, yeah, that was
And
the
yeah,
first one. I was trying to find it.
yeah.
I'd love to be back on Jubilee. It depends on the topic also. You said you don't want to do Surrounded. I would love to do Surrounded where I'm the one in the middle. I feel like,
Okay, yeah. I would love to do that too, but you would do a
yeah,
great
yeah,
job at that. You would do a great job.
yeah, no. And I just thrive in that environment. Like I love people, sort of like attacking me from all sides because I'm very used to like debating. I did
Yeah.
debate throughout high school and during like COVID, I was like going on Omegle and
I
just
knew you
debating
were
people.
I knew you had to be in debate in high school. I just knew it.
Hmm.
I just knew it. I know the vibes there. I just knew it.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, it's definitely been like a recurring theme. And what was the second question? It was about if they impact election results. So
Yeah,
like I think
Ross
the
and
answer
Tate.
to this question we're gonna find out as results come in because the Trump campaign's entire strategy seems to be like they want to mobilize young men to turn out at higher rates than ever before, which is why he's doing this whole Joe Rogan, Aiden Ross, Logan Paul strategy. And
Mm-hmm.
I agree that like most of their viewers are probably too young to vote, but there's probably a good chunk in there, maybe 20 to 30% that are 18 plus.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
of those people, we know like those people are very low propensity voters. They don't turn out often. So like what's going to be interesting to see is if these creators becoming more political sort of like increases voter turnout with young men. If that does
Mm.
happen, then maybe Trump has more longevity than we think. But as
Yeah.
of now, I doubt it. I don't think it's going to materialize.
Now, like I said, we'll get into election predictions because I want to talk about that definitely
Yeah.
because the election's so soon. But
Yeah.
I guess
Came up quick.
thinking of creators,
Hmm.
um, you know, there have been creators that have sort of moved right, you know, whether they like to pretend they didn't or whether they are make it clear. Dave Rubin being a
Hmm.
very famous example of
Yeah.
he started. Guys, I'm just actually the last liberal, you know,
He
and
just
then
wants to
now
exchange in the marketplace of ideas.
he just wants to exchange the marketplace. I just There's so many big ideas. It's amazing. And he honestly makes like the laziest form of content. I mean, who the fuck like imagine all you do is just doing interviews.
Yeah.
But I'm just kidding. Interviews are fine. But no, Dave Rubin obviously he started by being I'm the last liberal, and then
Hmm.
he moved on to just being like, yeah, actually Donald Trump is gonna win every single thing that he is ever in. Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
Lee says hi, Adam, new fan here. So shout out to Lee.
Oh, yeah. Thank you,
Um,
Lee.
but yeah, so there's kind of a new person kind of entering that marketplace. I remember when we
Hmm.
were kind of in an intermission period, like moving our chairs, and we were just kind of chatting, and Ben was chatting a little bit with the circle of people. I think I yelled out, or not yelled out, but said it out loud, who's your favorite commentator, progressive commentator?
I
And
remember
I
that.
was expecting an answer.
Hmm.
I'm not like blaming him for not answering because like stuff like we were busy, but the answer I was expecting was Anna Kasparian. Okay, so
Yeah,
Anna
I can see that.
Kasparian,
Yeah.
she has been having a quite a bit of a change.
Yeah.
Yesterday there was some drama about her debating with Cenk about
About
calling
calling Trump a fascist,
Trump a
right? Or a
fascist.
dictator.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my
And
gosh.
she gave it was so fascinating because she's been on this thing where she gets mad at trans people, she gets mad at, about homeless stuff or whatever. And I've
Hmm.
taught. I was an intern at the Young Turks. I know some people at the Young
Oh,
Turks.
nice.
I talked to one of them, and it was their opinion that Anna is genuine in her views, but part of me finds it just a little hard to believe that there isn't something about like, hey, like there's a person. I've been in this network for a long time. The Hassan was also on the network. Hassan
Hmm.
left the network, and while technically TYT has more of a bigger raw number, it's undoubtable that like with like the sort of streaming space, the content creator space broadly, not just like in
Hmm.
the inner of politics, but just across the world, Hassan is among the top. He's among the top subs on Twitch. He's been
Yeah.
on like the
Probably the
Trash Taste
most concurrent
podcast.
viewers of any political streamer, I'd guess.
Exactly, exactly. So I think there just has to be something in Anna's mind that is like, I feel stuck, and here's this kid, because I'm assuming Anna's a little older. Here's this
Hmm.
kid that was kind of under me in this company, and oh, all he's doing is playing video games, which she's said multiple times. But now she's gotten to a point where she's giving the same Republican talking points, not all the time, but in
Hmm.
that debate where she was like, we can't call Trump a fascist, and like Tank's arguing like he did this, he did this, he's doing this, he's lying about this, and then she's just like, well, did he succeed though? And I'm like,
That's the Ben Shapiro argument, literally.
that is literally the Ben Shapiro argument. Um, you know, if we're on TikTok live, so we can't say certain words. If the mustache
Hmm.
man in the 1930s Germany didn't come to power, let's just say he failed. He did fail the first time
Hmm.
when he attempted. He went to jail. Do we then get to say, well, he's not really a fascist. He didn't take over the country.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. But I mean, okay, so I'm kind of giving a lot of the context. I guess the question here is one, what is driving her to do this? Two, what do you think the future is for her? I think she's going to leave the Young Turks at some point.
Hmm.
Three, you mentioned that you kind of watch all media, all like left, right. It's good for sort of strengthening your perspective, strengthening your own arguments, and
Hmm.
understanding the other side. And understanding helps you counter it a lot of the time.
Right.
But Anna has been in the game for a very long time. She has been hated on by the right at a ridiculous level.
Hmm.
Um, like you could say like part of her shift is being hated on from the left. The hate she got from the right over the years is insane.
For sure.
But one of the things I think genuinely, if because some people are telling me it's a genuine shift, she's been consuming right wing content. So I'm
Hmm.
curious on a personal level for yourself, as someone that was a conservative that moved to the left, how do you? The final question of the three questions I asked relating to Anna, how do you go
Hmm.
about watching conservative media, interacting with conservatives without exactly sort of falling for
Getting
the
pulled in by it.
propaganda? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, man, the thing with Anna, so I mean, I actually have not been paying too much attention to what happened recently. I saw a clip of her on Twitter, I think, saying that
Yeah.
like, "Oh, why are we calling Trump a fascist or whatever?" I do remember earlier on, um, just seeing previous Young Turk segments where she's always sort of pushing Cenk to like look at Trump supporters in more good faith and be more charitable towards them. That's how she phrases it.
Yeah.
Um, so I think there's like a few different things going on here. I know she talked about having an experience where she was like essayed by a homeless person, I believe,
Yeah.
in California, and like she said that she was got like a negative reaction from people on the left when she went public about that. So what I would assume is happening is sort of like when you're personally affected by something, it holds a lot more value to you than like some abstract political concept, yeah, even if you
Definitely.
have an opinion on that abstract concept. And then I think probably she had been building up frustration with other people, and I'm trying to steel man her case right now. She'd been building
Yeah.
up frustration with people on the left in terms of like thinking that, and I agree with this to some extent, that like sometimes the left is lazy and they kind of just use these one-liners and these like labels to be like, oh, this guy is just XYZ, so we're not gonna
Yeah.
debate him on the merits of what he's saying, which I think you should always debate on the merits to convince the audience who's
Yeah.
more, persuadable. And then I think the issue you have there is like one little break like that, and if you're watching right wing media, then it kind of starts to like confirm these biases you're building up in your own
Hmm.
head. Like these liberals are not always honest. Like they sort of turn their back on you if you say the wrong thing. And like I also don't like how mean Cenk is towards Trump supporters, and it kind of culminates into this like snowball effect, which I think you're right. She probably will leave the Young Turks, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't be shocked if she moves more to like the Dave Rubin position of like I'm a free thinker and like I don't want to take these labels and I don't want to judge people, whatever she's going to come up with. I
She's
would say it
had. Oh,
starts.
sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
go
My
ahead.
bad. I was gonna say
Yeah, I was
she's
going to say,
had like. Oh, sorry. The delay. My
no, no,
bad.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
She's had like debates with Ben where she was very, very cordial. Like I think
Yeah, I saw.
I was respectful enough to him, but at the end
Hmm.
of the day, when I'm listening to what he has to say about Israel and Palestine, and
Yeah.
he's essentially being like, "What? You think there's no like to one of the people he was debating? You think there's no agency for the Palestinians? You think they
Yeah,
can't
that
do
was
anything wrong?"
ridiculous.
And it's like,
Yeah.
well, 50% of the current population is under 18. So I don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't really blame these
And how much
kids.
agency do you have in rubble with like no food security and you're like half your family is dead? Like, I don't know how much agency you have there.
Exactly, exactly. And so when I see Ben, I remember like this guy's a monster. I
Hmm.
just think optically when I'm up there, I don't need to go hard right away, especially on an issue that I'm not the best versed on debating.
Sure.
But for her, my genuine prediction is a Daily Wire job. I mean, they lost Candace Owens,
Hmm.
so now the thing is, she is pretty good on the issue of Israel and Palestine. Maybe that's going to become an
Yeah.
issue. It wouldn't surprise me though if she honestly shifts. Like
Hmm.
she's already moving towards a lot of different directions. If she moves on an important issue like that, I mean, look, I mean, people we've seen crazier stuff.
Yeah.
Um, there was something I had in mind. Oh, I guess going back to the Jubilee video. I
Hmm.
was kind of surprised. There were certain things I didn't expect. One, I kind of sounded better than I thought.
Just like the
uh,
audio, you mean?
not the audio, but like my arguments. I
Oh,
think
yeah, for sure.
focusing exclusively on like just like his framing. He
Hmm.
actually, I saw some people being like, "Yo, you got destroyed." Now, I don't really get triggered by that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I love the hate comments. I love the competition, right?
Hmm.
But I was when I actually listened, I'm like, okay, so he made the claim that Kama's a radical. I took the claim, kind of disproved it, I think, by bringing up
Yeah,
the
for
Rose
sure.
stuff. And ultimately, he didn't respond to that. He just essentially went to, well, what exactly is wrong with the states making the decision?
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I think like it wasn't a knockout punch on him, but I won. Okay, but a thing that
Yeah.
shocked me. Some people, they disagree with this idea. Some people really liked the trans guy's performance. I initially thought I wasn't a fan of the performance. I thought
I
it
agree.
kind of made him look bad and look too aggressive. But I think for most people, I guess most of the lefties that liked it, it felt cathartic to see
Oh,
Ben
yeah, I'm just
get
gonna say
yelled
a lot
at.
of people have been waiting for someone to like express that sentiment towards Ben.
Yeah, yeah. So I think I mean, good on him. Good
Hmm.
on the trans guy because he got a
Hmm.
W. He took a
Yeah.
massive risk, but he got a
Yeah.
W. A
And I
W I
think on
wouldn't
the
even
day of,
recognize.
he didn't see the fruits of that because on the day of, like I think he even got sort of reprimanded afterwards, where the director was like, "Hey guys, let's try to be respectful and not like make it personal or whatever." I forgot exactly what she said, but um, I can respect sort of having that like specific. I'm gonna say this. This is gonna be like my moment to sort of like express
Definitely.
something towards Ben with a platform. At the same time, I personally would never. That's just not my style of communication.
Yeah.
So like I think that's part of why I was initially just not a huge fan of it. And
Yeah,
I think that
yeah.
specifically
Same
bringing
thing
up his
here.
daughter, me personally, I don't ever want to bring up anyone's family in a political discussion, no matter what, just because
Hmm.
like those people didn't consent to be part of the conversation, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, broadly, I think it was super cathartic for a lot of people. And then sort of getting back to what you were asking about, like how do I avoid being sucked in by like the right
Oh,
wing
yes,
propaganda when
yes.
I consume right wing media? I think it comes from consuming other media as well, because you sort of
Yeah.
figure out like what are the things everyone agrees on. Those things are most likely true if like everyone from every side of the political spectrum is like acknowledging these certain things. Like what do people vary on? Why do they vary? um, and the reason I consume right-wing media is actually because I want to try to empathize with right-wing people, because I think that like this goes back to the argument I made earlier about the left being lazy sometimes.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned this, how like Jubilee kind of incentivizes you to make it like a blood sport where you have to be, and even TikTok debates, you have to be like super aggressive and you have to like
Yeah.
own and destroy people.
Yeah.
And I'm personally just like not a fan of that, because I don't know how many people it convinces. I think it's kind of like the election strategy between turning out your base versus persuading middle ground voters. And I think
Yeah.
Democrats are super like, we just need to preach to the choir and just like tell everyone that already agrees with us how righteous we are. And I think there's a time and place for that. I think there's people that do that really well. I
Yeah.
personally think that there are people that are sucked into the right wing pipeline because there's no one on the left kind of like non-judgmentally reaching out to them and saying like, hey, you believe this, I get why you believe it, but here's why you're wrong. And I
Yeah.
think there is some segment of people out there that can be convinced by that. So I think
Definitely.
like the best way to understand where these people are coming from is watching. Like I'm watching right now, I haven't finished JD Vance on Joe Rogan, and I'm just trying to understand like what do people on the right get out of this? Like what do they see the appeal in JD
Yeah.
Vance, and like how as someone on the left can I disarm that or like address that directly? Um, so yeah, I think like this gets back to like what I try to do with my content as well, is I try to never make it personal, never make it judgmental, and just be like, these are the facts. And if you just look at the facts, it's like impossible not to end up on the left side of most issues.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think communicating with the other side
Hmm.
is a massive skill. And
Yeah.
when you're
And the
in
right does
that,
it well.
the right does it well. Yeah, I mean, they kind of work overtime. I mean, they're
Yeah,
like, they'll pass like the most anti-minority policies you could think of, but then they'll be like, we love the blacks. The blacks are great
exactly.
actually, and the blacks actually
Yeah.
love me very much.
Yep.
When I'm in that room in Jubilee, right? We're surrounded by creators. We're surrounded by people that debate. It was a feeling that I got reminded of in the high school debate tournaments, right?
Hmm.
Because when I was in high school debate, I was never the big winner. You know what I'm saying? I did
Hmm.
Congress, so I got a lot of NSDA points. NSDA is national, right? So were you participated in the NSDA
So I
tournaments?
actually was part of this thing called Mist. It was like there's like a huge Muslim community in Michigan, so they have like an
Oh,
entire statewide tournament, and then if you win the statewide, you go to nationals. So I
oh,
did that for
really?
2 years in high school. I won first place, and then I forgot. No, I ended up not going to nationals because I didn't want to go to Baltimore or whatever it was. So
Okay, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I never got to go to those national tournaments because, you know, uh, the, I'm always confident in myself. I think I have gotten a lot better of a speaker, especially on the spot, over the years. Much more
Hmm.
so than when I was in high school. I mean, you can look at my YouTube channel. You can see videos from 2019 of me talking about the
Hmm.
Democratic primary, and I was very. It was just. It's very hard to talk on camera when you're like kind of early into doing it.
Hmm.
But yeah, when I was in debate, I remember, even though I had the most points in my school whenever I was around until I graduated, which was nice. I didn't really win things until senior year, right? And sometimes you would see the people that are just much better at like the game, you know what I'm saying? And you know, I would for like the first 2 years. most of my times going. Well, I would do a bunch of other events too, just to try it out, just for fun. I was mainly having fun, and I would go into the
Mhm.
Congress, speaking in front of the people, and I would like a lot of times try to make them laugh. um, and I mean, I think that skill of just like working in front of people, doing crowd
Mhm.
work in a way. It's almost like
Yeah,
comedy,
being personable.
being personable. One, it helps me. I like to go to these anime conventions, right? And I like to do panels.
Mhm.
They're just fun to do, right? I actually,
Mhm.
for this one Hallmat in Orlando, I actually took the debate event, the Congress, and I essentially like made it. I was like, this is that event, but about anime, and a lot
Okay.
less structured, a lot less
Mhm.
formal, and I hope that gets done because I think it'd be really funny. I think I had like a it would be like anime related bills. It was like all the like imagine all the universes just crossed over and then you would have to like support it, be against it, do the questioning, vote
Oh,
on
okay,
it.
interesting. Yeah.
Like I don't know if you ever watched Attack on Titan. Um,
I haven't
but
finished the last season, but yeah, I've seen most of it.
you know about the Eldians and the Marlians.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think I had like something that was like well, which one was which one is Aaron? Is he an Eldian or a Marlian? It's been a bit. Um,
I
I
haven't seen
think
it
he
in like probably over a year or two.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think he's an Eldian, and I think I put like one of the bill ideas I thought was like the Marleyan Freedom Restoration Act or the repeal the Eldian Rights Act or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of my little political jokes in there. Hopefully that gets through.
Yeah.
But the
Mhm.
point I'm trying to say, I'm kind of rambling at that point. Public speaking is a great skill, and I know when I was in that room, I could tell like, okay, I'm not gonna be able to go the fastest. I'm not gonna be able to be the most quick on my feet. You know, it could lead to insecurity, but I you know, gotta focus on the skills you have. I think one of the skills I have is what you were kind of describing is this ability to talk to the other side. You know what I'm saying? I
Mhm.
actually ran for office, right? And that's quite the experience. Well, one,
Mhm.
you're dealing with a lot of very different people.
Mhm.
Obviously, I'm on the left, so I was dealing with a lot of the Democratic Party. Even for a nonpartisan race, they're the people that support you. They're the people that help you out. But you
Mhm.
know, you gotta like, oh, you're always respectful in the events. You're always kind of tolerating some of the silly stuff you hear, especially from the more
Right.
establishment-minded people. And you're like, wow, you have no political instinct. But you don't say that to them, right? But
Right.
another thing I liked was dealing with the Republicans in real life. So
Mhm.
coincidentally, I was walking, and I walked by a house, and this lady was like, old lady was like, essentially, can you help me log into YouTube on the TV? And I think my brain was like, well, this is like way after the election. I lost. I got 41% of the vote against a 24-year incumbent, though, so I think that's pretty decent.
That's
Um,
solid showing, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I go into this lady's house. I try to help her out. I can't really do it because like she doesn't have a Google account. So and she didn't really want to make a Google account. I don't think she really understood the technology. She's old, I get it. But
Mhm.
as I'm leaving, I'm like, hey, if I run for office, make sure you vote for me because she's in my city. And then she starts talking about politics. And unfortunately, the question, even in a nonpartisan race, is always, what party are you? You know?
Yeah.
And you could weasel out, but I feel like weaseling out is just not that great. So I was just direct. I was direct about my positions about national politics because she was asking for it, but I was very respectful. And
Mhm.
you, there's a tone that isn't condescending, but it's like firm. You're making your disagreements clear, but there's respect, and respect just goes so far. And
Mhm.
she was respectfully to her if she sees this. I don't think she will. She's kind of off the deep end. She's like they're trying to do a one world government. That's like, and
Oh, okay.
she thought like with Kamala, she's like, you know, can you really imagine a woman doing foreign policy? And I'm
Yeah,
like,
wow.
okay, but even with that, and even with me being very direct, I was like, yeah, I'm like a very progressive person. I like Bernie Sanders. You know, a good line with these older folks that are conservative is, yeah, I'm a kind of Democrat, more like Roosevelt or Kennedy.
Mhm. Yeah.
Roosevelt's a bit more niche. That's more me being obsessed with the guy. But
Yeah,
Kennedy,
no.
they all just love Kennedy. You know,
Exactly, yeah.
they're
Across both
not
parties, people just like Kennedy, yeah.
they're not aware like Kennedy was supporting universal health care and had like much more higher taxes when he was president than we do. But
Mhm.
they just like the vibes. And
Right.
uh, and if you're especially with RFK Jr.'s campaign, right wingers just kind of love him
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah, that's true.
um, point is, I had a very respectful conversation, very direct about my positions, and it ended off with a smile and a wave, and she said she'll vote for me, right? And I think
Wow.
that's such an interesting skill. And I've had conversations like that on the TikTok live, where obviously you're encouraged to do blood sports, but sometimes when I can tell someone's being genuine and polite, I'll tone it down and I'll be respectful.
Right.
And
Hmm.
when I was looking at um, the Destiny the video with the Jubilee,
Hmm.
I was like, yeah, I think it would actually really be. I think someone like Pacman or Sam Cedar or Kyle Kalinske would do well in that format because they just are able to have more range. With Destiny, it
For
just
sure.
kind of felt like in the beginning he was a little too aggro. He seemed to calm down, but then when he calmed down, he let them get away with a lot. like when
That's the
they
fine line, yeah.
yeah, and they would say things like, when Donald Trump was president, we were importing rice to China, and it's just like, well, I would have had a quick response to that. I'm not trying to say like, oh yes, I'm a better debater than Destiny. I could be cocky
Hmm.
like that, but I want to be humble. I don't have as
Hmm.
much years doing it in the game as he does, but I simply would have responded that like the trade deficit went up under Donald Trump. It just did.
Right.
It just
Hmm.
did. It went down under Obama. It went up under Donald Trump. Do I have an
Yep.
explanation why? Maybe it was a bigger trend, but it is interesting that I think it went down under Biden almost immediately. I think there's
Hmm.
something about doing whatever the corporations want you to do that makes that happen. And also, I know I'm yapping a bit, and we're gonna since how long have we been at this? And I know we got a thing later. We've been in this for
Um,
47 minutes,
okay.
so we'll be
We
done
can do another
soon.
20 if you want, yeah.
20 minutes? Okay, okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into the election. Real quick, responding to the chat. Uh, if you're still here, Plunasty, were you on Jubilee? I was on Jubilee, and so was Adam.
Yep.
And Adam had a much more exciting clip than mine, but he's given me his time, so I appreciate him. Um, Eldian, thank you for the correction there. It's having grace and etiquette in the way you speak. Yes, definitely, definitely.
I think grace is the key word there for sure, which is just
Yes.
like not assuming the worst, like the first second someone trips up.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. And we were debating Ben, even with debating someone who I know is like, yeah, this is a partisan guy. This is a media guy. Like, this is not
Hmm.
someone who I'm gonna change his mind. This is not someone who I have to be overly polite to. I think it was. I think I did a good job not, saying he looks better in person than on camera.
Oh yeah.
Which that wasn't the
Someone
best
said that. I'm
line.
forgetting who said that.
I don't fully remember the name either. I just remember that. I was like watching
Yeah.
Hassan react to it, and I was like pissing, and I just heard that line, and he cringed. I wasn't even watching the video because I was like away. I just had my headphones on,
Yeah.
and I could feel the cringe from just the audio, from him.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
his chat liked my part though, so shout out to them. And
Yeah.
um, shoot, I'm getting a little sidetracked. I'm a bit
All
of a
good.
yapper. What was I talking about? Election, talking respectfully to conservatives, actually
Right.
convincing people, Jubilee,
Hmm.
blood sports, predictions. Shit. Well, I said a lot. Is there anything you got to say regarding all those things I said there?
Um, so first of all, it's just super cool that you ran for office. I mean, even if you didn't win, I think that's like people need to have that mentality of like, I think young people in general need to run for office more and become more, especially on the local level, more involved and more
Yeah.
knowledgeable because it's like super easy. And I do this too, so it's like I'm not above this, but like it's so easy to get preoccupied with national politics and like these huge culture war issues or like what was said on CNN yesterday, but like your roads and your traffic lights and your bike lanes, that's all done by like city planners and stuff. And like, whether it's Trump or Biden, probably not going to have a big impact on, if your library hours are longer or like how many books they
Yeah.
have, whatever it may be. So I commend that for sure. And then
Appreciate that.
I totally agree with you. I think like just approaching people with grace and how you were saying that like, she was had some sort of insane views, but by the end of it, she still said she'd vote for you, probably
Yeah.
because she felt like she was treated with respect, she was heard out, and she wasn't sort of made to feel like an other, like part of some out group, which I think that motivates a lot of MAGA. When I was at the middle ground, I spoke
Yeah.
to a good half of the people on the MAGA side, which was like 15 people. And the
Yeah.
one sort of like common theme that I got is like they all feel so aggrieved by the left that like the left is really mean to me. Like all my friends stopped talking to me when I became a Trump supporter. And this is
Mm-hmm.
so common. I
Mm-hmm.
think like the left needs to get better about that and treating people with grace. And because I think when you don't do that, you just push people into the arms of like snake oil salesmen like Ben Shapiro or
Exactly.
Andrew Tate or whoever it may be. Um, and then, yeah, that's pretty much everything.
Yeah, and I think this was something I remembered earlier that I want to bring this up. You know, you have center left independent in your bio,
Mhm.
and I think when I first came across your content, I liked your content, but I was like, I wonder how like I was because I you know you when you look at political commentators you kind of like want to you're wondering about what they're all about, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, I
Mhm.
wonder if this guy is like the guy that would vote for Pete Buttigieg over Bernie Sanders, but you know you confirmed
Mhm.
that you didn't, so good on
I
you
didn't,
there.
although I'll be honest though, even though we disagree, and if there was a primary happening today, a Democratic primary, I would probably vote for Pete Buttigieg over Bernie Sanders. I would.
Interesting.
I think he's a more skilled politician, in terms of just how he speaks. Like when I've seen him on Fox News, he absolutely destroys the Fox News hosts.
Yeah,
I think we can
yeah,
both agree on that.
yeah,
And then I think
100%.
also just on policy, like I like Bernie, and I think he sort of like Obama said it really well. That Bernie is kind of like a moral prophet or like a moral
Yeah,
voice for the party, where he's like
yeah.
this guiding light that like he was talking about a $15 minimum wage like way before it became the mainstream position in the Democratic Party. So I think that's kind of the role he plays. But as a sitting president, I just don't know how effective he would be at like whipping votes in Congress and like getting things necessarily done in a tight split.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just think Buttigieg is like a more skilled politician from what I've seen. But you know, like I would vote for Bernie in a general election. Like I still love
Yeah.
Bernie, but I think my style of politics has definitely shifted to like more center, where like I'm still pretty anti-establishment, but I think that
You're
um,
thinking
I'm not.
about a
I'm
bigger picture in a way. You're thinking about like
right,
how effective a president could be, you know?
right, and I also think like labeling yourself a democratic socialist when you're a social democrat, it's just like
Yeah.
it
Not the
feeds
best move.
so much of like the right wing talking points, which like they're gonna call anyone a communist anyways, but like at the same time, I think it's important to like have the optics of being a moderate, even if on policy you're progressive.
You know what's funny? Well, that's the thing that Sam Cedar, I believe, said that he kind of would have preferred Bernie not like had tied himself to the Democratic Socialist label. The thing is, Bernie
Yeah.
had tied himself to that label since the 80s, so there really was no changing that. And if he were to
Mhm.
change that, that would be like an inconsistency. And, you know, maybe if he were thinking, maybe if you got in a real theory discussion about Bernie, even though I hear he was never really a theory guy, I'm sure he
Mhm.
sort of has the perspective of like the OG democratic socialism in the sense that this is a transition into changing the economic system.
Right. So
Um,
yeah, I wouldn't be
yeah,
surprised if he had like a more macro, like Marxist analysis of society and politics and the economy, but he still has to channel that through American political system. So that's why
exactly.
he's not advocating for something much more left than what he is. But I think he's
Yeah,
played like a super positive role. Like even in the Biden administration,
definitely.
Biden's passed a lot of good domestic policy, which I think was championed by Bernie. A lot of the stuff in the American Rescue Plan, the Inflation Reduction Act. This is, I think, the legacy of Bernie Sanders, which I think he's had a better impact in that way than he would as president.
Yeah, you know, for me, when I mentioned I ran for office for local politics, I don't want to go further. You know,
Mhm.
I don't think I would want to become governor of Florida. I don't think I would ever want to become a House of Representatives member. I don't think I would ever want to become a senator. And now I'm saying that as if like, yeah, I could just do that. But I'm just because I just you see, maybe it's a bit of religious anxiety. I just don't want to fuck up and go to hell
Mhm.
on some real shit.
Yeah.
You know, but I think there's a lot of work that can be done. Thank you, internal sloth or internet sloth, for following. I think there's a lot of work to be done in the local level, and particularly in housing, like very much in housing, and just walkability and so on and so forth, because
Mhm.
it's the local level in America that changes the zoning laws. You
And
know,
walkability is a big thing, yeah. And I mean,
well,
I went to Ann Arbor for like college, so like that is probably the most walkable city in the country. Like it's set up for bikers and walkers, and going from there to like literally anywhere else, even when I was in LA for the shoot, it's like it's so ugly with all these like parking garages and parking lots everywhere and all this wasted space when you could have so much more compact buildings, but still have like amenities available to everyone.
Yeah. So you're in Michigan, right?
Hmm.
Michigan, honestly, the Midwest is one of the genuine bright spots in this country. It makes me
I
optimistic
agree.
seeing what they're able to do, and
Hmm.
especially with their electoral importance, it's nice to see. Um, it's nice to see. Sorry, I just got a phone call. I'm just hanging up on him.
There you go.
Uh, it's nice to see that like Gretchen Whitmer is in charge of Michigan, doing some anti-right to work stuff. Very cool,
Hmm.
very base. The governor of Wisconsin, I think, increased school funding for like 400 years.
Oh
uh,
wow.
Tim Walz, just wonderful. Josh Shapiro, not my
Hmm.
favorite of the Midwest governors, but I'm glad that he's in there rather than a
Right.
Republican.
His
And
opponent.
Florida, it's not looking too great here, but Texas is looking kind of nice, like in the sense that it seems like they're kind of in the opposite position of Florida, where they're kind of moving
To the
left,
left, yeah.
and Florida is kind of somehow solidifying on the right. Real quick, respond to the chat, and I'm gonna bring up a point that I meant to bring up earlier. Can you talk
Hmm.
about running for office? Still, can you talk? Still, really cool that you had the experience running. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, running is great. Running was great, and I think spoiler alert, spoiler alert, guys. I'm gonna run again probably. It's like 60% chance.
Hmm.
Um, this person here says, "Do you think I beat Shapiro on abortion?" Yeah, I think technically it's like a boxing
I'll
match
agree with
going
you on
into
that, yeah.
the 12th round. You just score the points, and I challenged his claim, made my arguments, and he simply did not respond to it. So I guess I win.
It was a 10-9
Can,
round for sure.
10-9 round, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, Curtis says, you killed it on Jubilee, Adam. So shout out to
Thank you.
Curtis. Uh, can I talk about the fact checkers on Jubilee? With the fact checkers on Jubilee, I've heard there's some problems. I don't know what
Yeah.
the problems are. I've just heard there were problems, so I don't have much to say.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people complain that like they'll fact check someone even when what they're saying is right, and then it's like it makes it seem like they're maybe not right. Like even during my Shapiro thing and on Jubilee Middle Ground, like I would say something and a fact check would pop up just verbatim saying the exact same thing that I just said. I saw
What?
people suggesting that like maybe have it be green when it's true and like red when it's false.
Mm.
I
Mm-hmm.
also saw conservatives complaining that like there were certain claims made by left-leaning people that weren't fact-checked that were incorrect. Like I think someone had mentioned in the middle ground like the number of billions or millions of dollars of damage that was done during like the BLM riots that happened, and they were like, oh, like it was this many $1 billion in this city, and there was no fact check for that apparently. So people on the right were upset about it too. But I don't know if this is a hot take. Like I'm not a huge fan of fact checking just because I feel like in a debate it's on your opponent to fact check you, and I don't like
Yeah.
moderators like inserting themselves too much in. It makes for great content when like David mirrors like Trump. Actually, like people are not eating cats and dogs. Like that didn't happen, and then Trump had like a meltdown. So it makes for good content, but on like a more principled level, I think like fact checking is great to have after like as a post show analysis or like in the description. But I don't like breaking up the flow of a conversation with having like a third party come in and sort of like derail it. I think like it's on the person arguing back to be like, no, what you're saying is factually not true.
I think that in most debates, I think that's true. I agree with that.
Hmm.
I think for the presidential debates, I'm okay with the fact checking like in the spot, just because like with some, well, it would be, for example, if you had some fact checking on JD Vance during the vice presidential debate, that would have been real nice. But he's like, we
Sure.
agreed, we're not gonna fact check.
Yeah. Yeah, he
I'm
was mad
supposed
about
to be
that.
able to lie. Just let me lie.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it was very great seeing Donald Trump get fact checked. But I was gonna make this point earlier about reaching out to people and like kind of like
Hmm.
in both more hostile debate settings and more friendly conversation settings where you're genuinely trying to convince someone. I mentioned that you said center left, and when I see sort of like center left people, or like people that might describe as social democrat, or people that might describe as liberals, they have a
Hmm.
very anti-populism perspective, right? Compared that
Hmm.
to someone like Kyle Kalinske, who has for many
Right.
years described himself as populist left. And by the
Hmm.
way, I think Kyle's commentary, I think it's gotten better over the years. I actually like kind of
I agree.
stopped watching a lot of Kyle after the
Same.
primary in 2020
Hmm.
because it just felt too doomerish. But then
Yeah.
like when Biden was doing good things, This is how you know he's one of the realest motherfuckers in the game. He
Right.
just gave credit where credit's due. He's like,
Yep.
this is great. Like, and then when he does bad things on Israel, he calls it out for what it
So still
is.
critical. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the
And
thing
even
is,
for the
what
Afghanistan pullout, which when it happened, like
Mhm.
everyone was, upset with Biden, but I think Kyle was like still pretty consistent there.
Yeah, and by the way, that perspective on Afghanistan that Kyle was putting out there is the best position to argue when someone's bringing up the Afghanistan stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like, I remember when Dean was one of the 1v25 Democrat versus Republicans, there was a girl that was bringing up Afghanistan,
Yeah.
and, you know, again, I'm not, this is not me being disrespectful, claiming I'm the best debater in the game at all. But
Hmm.
I was to say, if I was there, because he kind of, I think, conceded. He was like, look, I don't know much about Afghanistan. I don't really want to talk about it. And she got to kind
Hmm.
of push the narrative. I would simply say, look, Donald Trump promised he would get out.
Yeah.
Obama promised he would get out. They failed. Donald Trump failed.
Hmm.
Joe Biden promised, and he did it. Was it chaotic?
Hmm.
Was it messy? Yes. But the
Yeah.
government we set up there collapsed right away. We set that
Because
government
Trump
up
left them
for
out of the
20 years.
negotiations too.
And he
Yeah.
also did do that. He also let the Taliban leader. Oh, I don't know if I can say Taliban on TikTok. He let the bad people out of jail,
Yeah.
and they were organized and they were ready, and they took down this paper government that we
Yeah.
had set up or propped up for 20 years. But it was we listen. If we were to just, I'm not against intervention where it makes sense. I'm completely in support of
I agree.
Ukraine, completely. But with Afghanistan, we can't just take over every single country with a bad leader. We would have to
Yeah.
take over Israel. We would have to take over Saudi
Yeah.
Arabia, Iran,
Yeah.
Russia, China. We have to work with a lot of bad people in international politics.
Hmm.
Otherwise, we get situations like Afghanistan. But
Right.
what the thing about when I do talk a sort of more populist tone, like Kyle about Afghanistan,
Hmm.
when I talk populism about trade and economics, it is the most disarming thing, whether you're talking to like a friendly conservative or a very aggressive conservative. One of the things I saw in that Destiny debate, and again, I'm bringing it up a lot because it was just I watched it earlier,
Right. Yeah.
so and and since both me and you were on Jubilee, I guess it's relevant to the
Hmm.
conversation.
Yeah.
But Destiny has been one of these guys that is very free trade and free trade only.
Hmm.
He's very anti-populism,
Hmm.
very anti-protectionism. He's not the only one. You know what I mean?
To be
Like,
fully transparent, I'm also pretty anti-populist and pretty anti-protectionist, broadly speaking.
yeah, yeah. And I understand the reasons why.
Hmm.
Generally, trade keeps the world a bit more connected.
Hmm.
I've just I don't consider I'm not like Trump in the sense where I'm just like tariffs and tariffs on every good,
Right.
right?
Yeah, for no
I
reason.
I
Yeah.
honestly am more like Bernie and Biden in the sense that I'm just like,
Hmm.
yeah, if you want to not allow Chinese EVs to compete with American EVs,
Yeah,
I get
I
it.
think for
I
national
get it.
security reasons, it makes sense. And I think in certain areas where like you really want to develop your manufacturing base domestically for like long-term prosperity, it makes sense. But I think like free trade, broadly speaking, is
Yeah.
usually better than it is like bad.
Generally, we should keep the world connected, and generally, we should
Right. And
try to avoid trade wars.
yeah, and this is like economics indoctrination or whatever, but like one of the first things you learn in economics is that like free trade works because certain countries just specialize in certain goods more than others. Like if they have access to more natural resources, they can produce certain goods at cheaper prices, which is like a net gain for everyone else. And then like
Yeah.
if every country kind of specializes in what they're good at and they trade that with other countries, I think that's like obviously like an idealistic way of looking at the world, but where it is possible, I think we should pursue it. But then when it comes to China and other bad actors, even like Israel, I think sanctions should be involved.
Yeah.
So there is definitely a time and place for like economic protectionism and even like economic punishment.
Yeah, and I think when you bring up, when I'm oftentimes debating the Republicans, it always gets to a conversation about manufacturing, just because that's a topic I
Hmm.
like to talk about.
Hmm.
Because I get to point out, just like, look, I mean, Trump made a lot of, as a progressive person on the left, there were some promises Donald Trump made that were objectively good in my view,
Right.
but he
Yeah.
failed on each one of them.
Yeah.
I think it's good to relook at the trade deals. I think trade deals are good,
Hmm.
but it would be also a nice thing if, for example, we put in, say, all right, if a company is doing this in another country, there needs to be this labor standards, which will encourage an increase in labor standards in these other countries, and also
Hmm.
discourage American companies from, say, like, okay, we're gonna leave the countries because we want bad labor conditions to save money. Whatever. Like, there's purposes of it, and I criticize Donald Trump because he did the fake populism in 2016, where he's like,
Yeah.
NAFTA, TPP, bad, don't like it. Does
Yeah.
USMCA? It's NAFTA with TPP provisions. Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't do an infrastructure plan. Ultimately, there was manufacturing growth in the Trump administration. Really, it was just continuing the Obama era trend. That's like a
Right. Same
constant
trend. Yeah.
theme of the Obama era.
Yeah.
But technically, he did lose 200,000 manufacturing jobs.
Yep.
Technically. And
Rise the
Biden,
jobs too. Yeah.
yep, and Biden gained 800,000 manufacturing jobs. Yes, a lot of it is a bounce back, but still, the positive trend
And
obviously
also like CHIPS
continues.
Act, that's going to directly
Chips
onshore like
Act.
so much microchip manufacturing in the U.S.
And you know, honestly, one of the most important reasons to vote for Kamala is we haven't even seen the best of it. I mean this genuinely, right?
Hmm.
If we see right now the investment, public and private, into construction of manufacturing is sky
Hmm.
high. We were having
Hmm.
fairly consistent manufacturing growth during the Obama era, but it's not like
Hmm.
we've seen investment like this. We haven't seen investment like this since World War
Yeah.
II.
Yeah.
And if we're right now in this period in like under Biden where the money is now being put in,
Hmm.
I genuinely believe we really have not seen the boom in the jobs yet. There's going to be a
I agree.
boom. And if Donald Trump got in and did
Yeah.
the
He's
things
going to
that
take
he
credit.
wants to do, well, one, he'd
Yeah.
take credit, and two,
Yeah.
he might screw it up. You know, because
Yeah.
if he does mass deportations, it's gonna get rid
Hmm.
of a lot of construction workers, and construction
Hmm.
workers are a big part of building those factories. If he gets
Yeah.
rid of, if he does the tariffs, these people like these conservatives are like, well, won't that just make everything built here? And it's like,
Hmm.
well, we're still gonna need to import something. Let's say it's like a most basic raw material that we just don't have. And that's
Right.
gonna make everything more expensive. And
Hmm.
that's just gonna cause economic instability. And those private corporations that are investing in manufacturing again in America that see us as a safe investment are not gonna see us as a safe investment. And China
Yep.
is gonna get to once again play a role like they did in the first Trump administration as we're the new stable leaders of the free world, or
Yep.
not free world, but just the world. Um,
Yeah.
but that populism is such a useful tool that when I was
Hmm.
watching Destiny debating these conservatives and they were debating the tariffs, I
Hmm.
think on principle, Destiny just literally could not say, tariffs can be used in a more targeted and strategic sense because I think he's just
Hmm.
completely free trade, and I understand someone's completely free trade, but in that
Yeah.
moment, it would just be a useful opportunity to say,
Yeah.
look, I understand what you're saying. That's why Biden has some of these tariffs. But Donald
Yep.
Trump wants to do across the board, and that is going to cause ridiculous inflation. It's going to be like fucking. I think I saw like
Exactly.
it's going to be like like a $3,000 new tax on
Tax. Yeah.
everybody.
On American families. Yeah.
But I want to finish with this since we've been at it for a while.
Hmm.
We got stuff to do. I want to talk about the election. I'm gonna probably make this into its own video.
Okay.
YouTube, the election is coming. Let's just say tomorrow. Let's say I make this for today, right before election day.
Hmm.
I'm joined by Adam Khan from TikTok. And by the way, I meant to ask this earlier. Are you Pakistani?
Yep.
Khan's a very Pakistani name, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of my closest friends are, one of them is Bengali, two of them are
Oh, nice.
Pakistani,
Uh-huh.
so, and I could tell by the looks. The skull
Yeah.
shape. Okay, I'm gonna be careful now. But going into the main topic of this video, I want to talk about
Yeah.
the election. Adam is a political content creator. He actually has a few videos that's like best case scenario for Kamala Harris, worst case scenario for Kamala Harris, best case for Trump, worst case for Trump. I want to talk today about the most realistic case, what we think is gonna happen, and you'll be able to look back at this video after election day and be like, oh wow, these guys were fucking correct, or wow, these guys are fucking idiots.
Horribly off. Yeah.
So, you know what? We'll start with you. What are you seeing? What's the election map looking like? What is the how will it go through the night? What is the future gonna look like for your potential winner? And how is Trump gonna react when he loses?
Um, so I mean, I think Kamala Harris is being understated in the polls right now. If you look at, I talked about this in my videos. If you look at polling misses historically, in 2016 and in 2020, polls underestimated Trump. Like he performed a few points better than the polls had him pegged at. But if you look at historical trends, anytime polls make the same error in the same direction twice in a row, they always overcorrect the third time in the opposite direction. So I think that we're going to see a lot of pollsters that are this year undercounting Kamala because they're so scared of missing Trump voters again.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
won't be surprised. What I'm predicting right now is Kamala winning all the swing states. I think she's winning
All the
Michigan,
swing
Wisconsin,
states.
Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, and North Carolina. I think she's winning North
Holy
Carolina as
shit.
well. Um, just because, I mean, there's that. There's also the fact that, like, we haven't seen Trump run in an election since post January 6th and post all these indictments and post all these controversies, the Puerto Rico thing a few days ago. Like, there's just
Yeah.
so much that has happened, which even for Trump is kind of beyond the pale since his
Yeah.
last election campaign. And I just
Yeah.
can't imagine that, like, he will gain support in certain segments of like young men, even young men of color. He's doing better with young black men, young Hispanic men. So we will see that. But I think what he's going to lose in like the white suburban voters, which they kind of make or break a lot of these races in Pennsylvania, Arizona. I think that what he's going to gain is not going to compensate for what he's going to lose. And I just put down on Kelshi like $150 on Kamala winning Arizona because her odds right now there are 25%, which to me is insane. And maybe
Yeah.
Trump will win and I'll look like an idiot, but I think Kamala will win Arizona because Arizona has a specific, like, sort of John McCain style of Republican, which is
Mm-hmm,
very
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
distinct from like the Trump wearing MAGA hat type of Republican.
It also
And
has
after
very intense MAGA Republicans, though, like
it does. But
Gosar.
I think, like even seeing Kerry Lake lose there in
Yeah.
2022, the types of Republicans you see in Arizona, broadly speaking, if just like, and this is another thing I mentioned in my videos, if you look at the Arizona Republican primary in 2024, when Trump was already the presumptive nominee, no one else was running against him. It's just Trump on the ballot. I think 10 or 20,000 people still voted for Nikki Haley. Maybe it was more than that.
Mm.
Tens of thousands of people voted for Nikki Haley. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
if those people just sit at home, even if they don't vote for Kamala, if they just sit at home, leave the top of their ballot blank, or if even 2% of them vote for Kamala, those are the types of margins that decide Arizona. So I
Yep.
think we're going to see, maybe it's not a lot, maybe it's just like 10 to 15% of typical Republican voters either not vote or vote for Kamala this election. And I think that, even though on paper it seems like a small amount, I think that will make the difference in all the swing states. Obviously, people should still vote. I don't want to give people like a false sense of
Yeah.
complacency because this is hinging on people turning out at high rates, right? If we don't
Yep.
turn out, then we're not going to win. But I think
Mm.
broadly speaking, we're going to see a decisive Kamala Harris win. My biggest sort of like hot take prediction is that I think we're going to see Texas be within 3 points. I
Ooh.
think Trump will
Okay.
still win, but if you look at the historical trend, Romney won by like 16 in 2012, Trump won by 9 in 2020, then Trump only won by 5.6 or in 5.6 in 2020. He won by
Yeah.
9 in 2016.
Yeah.
So you see a trend almost moving like
Massive
4 or 5 points to the left each election cycle. So I think Harris will get close. I don't think she'll flip it. But just broadly speaking, I think the electoral map is shaping up to be really advantageous for Democrats because once Texas does flip, Republicans are destroyed for like the next 10 election cycles, even if it happens in 2032. If we have California and
Inshallah.
Arizona or California and Texas together, Republicans just can't win national elections anymore unless they change their platform dramatically, shift dramatically to the left to be competitive.
Hopefully. I mean, it's been done before. We've seen
Yeah,
parties sort of shift. I mean, there was,
yeah,
I can't imagine how jarring it must have felt living through the Gilded Age, but then the Progressive
yeah,
era. You know,
yeah,
like the
yeah,
1912 election, absolutely crazy. Every single person
yeah.
there was a progressive, relative for the time.
Right.
But my predictions going into this, I 100% agree with you. I think Kamala's genuinely being underestimated. I think there's things that like, Kyle Kalinske talked about this, that the pollsters are, they're trying to not look stupid, and they're
Yeah.
afraid of predicting wrong, and they're trying
Everything's
to
just
say
50-50 now. Yeah.
it's 50-50, guys. I mean, it could go either
Yeah.
way. And if it is
Yeah.
like heavily on one side, they get to say, well, we had a scenario like that, but we just wanted to
Yeah.
be
That was one
cautious.
of our million simulations on 538. Yeah.
Exactly. But I guess I am pretty optimistic, mainly because Trump's been running a horrible campaign. The worst
I
campaign
totally
he's
agree
ever
with you.
run.
This has been his worst one. The funny thing is, I think it started as his best when he was running against Biden.
Yeah.
I think like end of last year, beginning of this year, I thought Trump was running a really good campaign. I think he was like very strategic with what he was talking about. He was kind of like, I'm just a common sense guy. And remember how cheap everything was when I was in office? And that's
Yep.
all he was saying. I'm like, this is your winning message. But
Yep.
ever since Kamala came into the race, you can tell it like threw him off. She's not black, now she's black, like all those things he says. And it's just like it's like he's almost trying to lose. Sometimes when I hear him speak, I don't understand why he would
Yeah.
say this.
I
When he got
mean,
shot, I thought maybe this is going to turn around for him, but that like died much quicker than I thought it would. Like the hype around that. So
so yeah, and that's like, so he got shot. Then the convention. It feels like
yeah,
there's a lot of momentum, and then Biden drops out the next week,
yeah,
or
stole
like
his
the
thunder. Yeah,
weekend of, completely shifted the vibes, and I mean, you look at Kamala Harris. Is she running a perfect campaign? Not
definitely not.
exactly. I mean, I'm not a
Yeah,
fan of the Israel Gaza stuff, obviously based on
yeah,
principles.
I agree.
And it's a scary thing, particularly people focus on Michigan. You're a Michigan person,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and there have been
If I'm
polls
wrong about
saying,
one state, I just want to say here, I think I'll be wrong about Michigan if I'm wrong about one. I could imagine all
yeah,
those states going blue except Michigan.
definitely, definitely. I think Tim Walz legitimately helps in Wisconsin, just like
I agree.
regional things. I
I
think
agree.
I think he helps, and Kamala's just running a good campaign in Pennsylvania. Just
Hmm.
they're one of the things to factor in. The Democrats are just working. They're just working very
On the
hard.
ground, yeah, grassroots,
Um,
yeah.
from the door knocking to just like
Hmm.
all the big names are out there rallying. Obama, Michelle Obama, Bernie Sanders, AOC, of course, the top
Yeah.
of the ticket. They're all working very hard.
Bill Clinton for some reason.
Bill
Yeah.
Clinton for some reason. Oh my God. Honestly, the Michigan's the scariest thing. It's hard for me to imagine Michigan not voting with like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, but
Yeah, that's
in
the thing.
in in life anything's possible, and they're doing an interesting thing where they're sending Bill Clinton to talk about Israel and Palestine, and they're sending Richie
In the worst way
Torres.
possible, yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
believe they're sending Richie Torres. I
I'm
feel
actually
like,
somewhat optimistic in that I think Kamala will be better on this issue than Biden is, but I think because
oh, I
she's
agree.
vice president, she can't say that because like it undermines Biden's position geopolitically.
Yeah,
But
I
I feel
agree
like she'll have better
100%.
foreign policy.
My understanding is there's some reporting. Of course, we will not know this until she's in there. But there's some
Hmm.
reporting saying that she wants to get rid of the Warhawks, and
Yeah.
that's. I mean, we objectively know that Donald Trump had his Israel foreign policy written by the Adelson family. The Adelson
Yeah.
family donated again. It's going to happen again, and he's saying
Hmm.
he's been talking with Netanyahu, and he's saying don't listen to Biden. Don't listen to
Yeah,
Biden.
he's
Biden's
holding you
too hard
back
on you.
apparently.
He's holding you
Yeah.
back somehow, some way. I have no idea,
Yeah.
right? um, but Michigan is the riskiest of the Rust Belt states that we could lose
Hmm.
because simply, if some of the polls are correct, that like the Muslim
Hmm.
vote is as like, you know, high for Trump as it is, which is just
Yeah, or even
kind
if
of
these people just
unfortunate,
don't vote and they're like,
or
I'm
they
just
don't
going to
vote.
stay home because I don't want to participate. The one
Yeah.
thing that gives me hope in Michigan is that if you look at the Democratic primary, like uncommitted in Michigan got 100,000 votes, and Biden won here by 240,000 votes in 2020. So it's like,
Okay.
I don't, the margins is just going to depend on like how things line up and
Oh,
like what
that's
percentage
a
of
big
people are actually going
margin.
to show up.
I
Yeah.
didn't realize it was that large. 200,000
Yeah.
gap.
Out of the Rust Belt states, Biden did the best in Michigan in 2020.
Oh, interesting. And the thing is,
Yeah.
Michigan is like, I don't know about like the literal union membership numbers, but I feel like of the states in the country, Michigan is
Oh,
like
yeah.
that's the
Auto
union
unions
state,
here are big for sure.
and the UAW's been working there,
Hmm.
for the campaign. But I think in Nevada she's gonna win. I
Hmm.
just don't see a reason why she would lose.
Yeah.
She hasn't done anything really wrong to piss off the people in Nevada.
Yeah.
Arizona, I can see it just being close, just because some of the polls are close. I can see it going to Trump. I can see it going to her.
Hmm.
Um, North Carolina, I think she's gonna win. I think she's gonna win
I
North
agree.
Carolina
Yeah.
because the guy running for governor I can't imagine he helps the
Yeah.
Republican turnout at all. I can imagine he really helps the Democratic turnout, and they've been working hard in North Carolina. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Georgia, there's been some fuckery, so I can see us
Yeah.
losing. But considering the fact that we won in 2020, we run the two
Hmm.
Senate runoffs, and then Did one of the senators have another race again? Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know.
I think
Um,
uh I think Warnock did.
Warnock
I might
did,
be wrong, but I
and
think
he
Warnock
won.
did.
Yeah, against the
Yeah.
football guy, and he won. And of course, we just can't ignore the 2022 effect. I mean, Roe v. Wade is still the top issue for a lot of
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
and I guess we got to factor in Israel and Palestine, but also at the end of the day, also, foreign policy is never at the top for people. It
Yeah.
just never is.
Yeah.
Whether that's right or wrong, it's just a fact. So I can imagine when election day kind of comes around, you go to like these important places like Michigan, and the people are just Donald Trump's horrible.
Mhm.
This is the better option. And
Yeah.
as for my own state, Florida, I mean, I don't see us winning Florida.
Yeah. I don't think
I'll
so.
vote for the Democrats. But there's a group, People Power Florida. They're the only people in state politics that have never annoyed me in any way. They recently put out a text. They were just like, "Hey, it's Freak Bob," and then they were like telling people to like vote and get out there. And
Okay.
people found it just funny. It's one of the few texts where people just weren't pissed off at receiving it. People were just like,
Mhm.
"What is this?" And then the Republicans are getting mad at it. They're like, "Guys, this is so cringe." And then you see like old people in the comments being like, "What is a Freak Bob? Why would they call them Freak Bob? You think that's a smart way to win voters by calling them Freak Bob?"
Gen Z voters, maybe. Yeah.
Gen Z voters love it. Can Texas flip blue? Maybe not this time around. Maybe we could win the Senate seat because
There's a
it's
scenario where
hard.
it happens, but like that is, I think, Kamala's best case scenario.
That's her best case scenario. But they should not. They should put a lot of resources in it for 2028 and in the
Mhm.
2030s. 2030s is going to be very exciting, but we're focused on 2024, and I
I
think
agree.
Kamala's going to
2030s
win.
are going to be big, I think, for the Democratic Party.
Genuinely, I think it's going to be big for the country.
Yeah.
You look at the past, you look at history. We've had landslides before, and I've
Yeah.
wondered, can we really have that in the media environment we have today, where it's so
Hmm.
partisan? There was no Fox News during Watergate. That's why there was nobody being like, guys,
He's
Richard
innocent,
Nixon
actually.
did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
But okay, since we've been going at it for a while, I know you got something
Mhm.
to do. I got something to do. So my final prediction: Kamala
Yeah.
victory. I'm gonna give her Michigan. I'm gonna give her Michigan. I'm gonna give her Wisconsin. I'm gonna give her Pennsylvania. I'm gonna give her North Carolina. I'm not gonna give her Georgia just because there was some
Mhm.
fuckery. Um, Nevada. And you know what? Let me play it safe a little bit. I
Okay.
could see Arizona going to Trump. There's just something in
Mhm.
my gut that feels like it will. But honestly, the moment we see Pennsylvania go blue, it's not quite Jover, but it's
Yeah.
kind of Jover in a good
Yeah.
way.
Trump doesn't have a path after that, really. Yeah.
Yeah. She just has more paths. She could
That's the
hypothetically
thing.
lose Michigan, but if she wins
Yeah,
North
and still
Carolina,
win. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So I
So,
think Harris has
yeah.
more paths, and also if Trump wins the election, I'll be a bit surprised. Like I don't think that's where the country is at. And if it is, then I think it'll be like a wake up call for a lot of people on the left that like maybe we missed something like in 2016 when no one expected
Yeah.
it. But I would genuinely be shocked if Trump won. And I want to address
Definitely.
really quick. Someone said
Yeah.
Adam Wow's HR2 a bad bill. This was in regards to my middle ground thing where I talked about the bipartisan border bill versus HR2, which Republicans are always like, oh, what about HR2? And Chuck Schumer is sitting on it in the Senate, even though the Congress passed it. HR2 doesn't address any of our structural issues, and it's like very targeted on just like enforcement of border regulations and like stopping people from coming. And that's kind of like a band-aid solution, which the actual issue is like our asylum system is not efficient and it just is not humane at the same
Yep.
time. So like
Yep.
we need more immigration judges so that when people apply for asylum, if they really are these, crazy criminals you think they are, their claim is going to get denied, they're going to get deported. But if they
Yep.
have a legitimate, credible fear to be here, then they're going to get accepted. So I think like if you really want to solve the quote unquote immigration crisis, we need to expedite cases being heard for asylum claims. And the bipartisan bill just does a much better job than HR2. And also,
Yep.
the bipartisan bill, like the name suggests, is bipartisan. So it's going to pass. Whereas I think HR2 would not pass the Senate.
I remember in that video of yours, I've heard this talking point. I think someone said it in the Destiny video too. So I guess it's a
Mhm.
common talking point on the right. They're like, it wasn't a bipartisan bill. Bernie
Yeah.
Sanders didn't sign on to it. And it's like, well, yeah, it's a conservative bill, and Bernie's not a
Yeah.
conservative person,
And they
but
could have
that
passed it
doesn't.
without Bernie if it was
they,
bipartisan like it was supposed to
yeah,
be. Yeah.
yeah, and that's not shade to Bernie. That's just like they just fundamentally don't understand human language, these conservatives, for
Mhm.
some reason.
Someone's
Anyway,
asking also, what did
oh yeah,
HR2
go ahead.
actually do, just real quick? It
Yeah.
basically just made enforcement more harsh and more strict. Penalties were longer, like the punishments for violating certain things were longer. There was more restrictions on things like paroles, and it was much more punitive than like actually holistic in like addressing systemic issues.
Yep. Yep. Well said. You say things very well. That's what I can
Thank
say.
you.
Have you
Thank you.
ever considered running for local office?
I've thought about it. It's something I might do down the line, but like I'm probably applying for law school next year. So like it's something that it's definitely on my mind, but like if it happens, it happens. It's not something that I'm like super intent on necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're well spoken. You have a good
Thank
understanding
you.
of politics, and if you like get a handle of the campaign stuff, the dates that you
Hmm.
need to send out mailers, the
Right.
raising the money, then
Yeah, the freak
I
Bob
think you're good.
texts. Yeah.
Yeah, the freak Bob text, you know. Uh, okay, final question since we
Hmm.
had it for a long time.
Hmm.
You're going to law school and you're also doing like this content creation stuff. Are you trying to
Hmm.
also be like a full-time content creator, like get paid from that, or are you trying to become a lawyer? Like what's the plan?
I'm kind of gonna play that by ear. Like it depends how content does for me over the next year or two. Like if it really blows up and becomes extremely sustainable, then obviously that'd be like my dream career. But I took the LSAT twice this year, and
Okay.
like I have a score that I like. So like I'm gonna apply for law school either way, and like I think I have like sort of like flexibility with which path I choose.
Yeah.
Um, so like I was initially gonna apply for law school this fall, but because social media did well for me and I was able to start earning from it, I sort of pushed that off to next year.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's one of the cool things about social media is for me, I do like substitute teaching, but I'm also
Hmm.
my more passions are into the politics, are into content creation. So my long-term
Hmm.
goals are in local politics and in the social media game, and you just got to keep grinding. You are
For
in a pretty
sure.
decent position because you got a pretty good editing style, you got a pretty good commentary
Hmm.
style, uh,
Hmm.
and you're building. You're building. But yes,
Yeah, I was on
anyway,
Parker's Live yesterday and I gained like 2,000 followers, which is insane.
really? Yo, how do I get
Yeah.
on Parker's Live?
Uh,
I don't think I have those connections. I don't think I left the
uh,
biggest impression. Maybe I could. I think I was in. I'm talking with Mason to have a conversation or an interview with him like this.
Mason's
So
super smart. Yeah.
Mason was honestly, in my opinion, like if we
Hmm.
were like sort of ranking all the people
Oh
in
yeah.
that video, he kind of
Uh-huh.
after we leave, we probably all thought, yeah, it was Guy. Guy was the MVP. But you know
Right.
what? It was actually Parker, and Parker's clips they kind of spread out big. One, like he's Hassan's favorite guy, so Hassan talked about him a lot.
Parker or
So
Mason?
that's Mason.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Mason kind of won the video. Of the 25 of us,
Hmm.
Mason was the winner because you look at the clips that he got. I mean, Majority
Yeah.
Report talked about him, and
Yep.
probably because Ben Shapiro's name was in the title and Ben Shapiro getting destroyed was in the title. That
Yep.
video got like 400,000 views, which is
Yeah, I
pretty
saw that.
good for Majority Report numbers. Hassan talked
Yeah.
about it. Vosh talked about it.
Hmm.
Um, and overall, I gotta say, of all the people that we met that day, he's been
Hmm.
the best at keeping contact. So,
Mm.
um, and of course you are too. You're doing this interview, so. But anyway, kept you on for a long time. I appreciate you.
Of course.
I'll make probably two videos. One kind of the interview, and then the other the election stuff. And I'll let you know when they're out. All right.
Cool. Thanks for having me
Thank you
on,
for
man.
coming. And
Yeah.
if you ever need anything, let me know. All right. See you
All
later.
right. Same to you. Bye.
Mhm.